Hi all and welcome back to another video covering the Cheltenham Festival of 2020, and hopefully it looks like we're going to get the go ahead after a couple of days of fierce enough speculation. I know there's still a hint of speculation and stuff like that, but we're sitting here on the Thursday morning. There has to be a limit to how late they can actually go ahead and cancel this if it was the case. I don't think it will happen. I think we have got the green light for now. So it's time to really get excited, I suppose, and get stuck in to these festival handicaps, which are a bit of a bloodbath. But that being said, you've got to go out and try give it a go. I reckon you've got 10 handicaps over the whole week. If you win 3 of them or so, you'll probably have had an alright week because you'll find a nice enough price here and there. So it's just about trying to find those 3 and trying to have a profitable week going into next week anyway. Just a couple of plugs. Obviously, I was over in England on Monday and Tuesday there with the Racing Post, doing a bit of podcast work. If you haven't seen that, it's the Racing Riot podcast. It's with Josh Stacey and Charlie Post. It was really fun being over there. We got to interview some cracking, big names. It was a bit surreal for me, to be honest, but really enjoyable. They're coming out kind of day by day, those kind of preview podcast. So if you have listened to them, some of these handicap selections you will already have heard, but I kind of wanted to plug that. And personally, just myself, if you haven't already, I'll have my Twitter link at the top of the description in this. If you could go over and follow me on that, that would be absolutely brilliant. I suppose more just daily thoughts, a few daily tips, that sort of stuff. And especially coming up to Cheltenham, I want to interact with as many of you as possible. So if you feel fit, go over and follow on Twitter. Well, that's enough plugging, that's enough rambling. We need to get through these 10 handicaps. And I'm going to go through them quickly. I'm not going to be pantsing around. I understand stats. I do get stats. But I don't get hung up on them. I just think sometimes you can read a little too much into them, and therefore it actually becomes more confusing than less confusing. Sometimes you got to side with horses you know, form that you might know, or maybe just a visual eye or just an inkling you might have. Every now and then I get an inkling. Half the time it's stupid, half the time it works out quite well. Starting off in the Ultima Handicap Chase, a race renowned for having a desperate Irish record, but here I am putting up an Irish horse in the case of Discorama, who's running here off 148, and the main thing with Discorama is his great festival form. Second in the Martin Pipe to Blow by Blow, and second in last year's National Hunt Chase to Lebroy. Very unlucky last year especially. Jumped the last in front, just got worried out of it at the end of a really testing slog of 4 miles. They were finishing very tired that day, as we all know. Back to 3 miles here. To be honest, this season hasn't perhaps maybe gone to plan. He still put up a reasonable effort in Wexford at the start of November. Their big day and their biggest race of the year really is that listed 2 mile 7 Chase. He gave Champagne Classic £5 that day and was only beaten a couple of lengths. That was quite a good performance. He jumped quite well that day. Champagne Classic was really impressive that day, I must confess. But I thought Discorama was really quite good, and that kind of put me in the position that he would win a handicap. And I remember saying on my 10 horses to follow video this year, he was one of them. I thought he would be able to win a big handicap sometime this year. He ran in the Troytown off top weight. He got a bit bogged down by the weight and the ground, and then he ran over hurdles at Limerick. Now, I was on a Cheltenham Preview Night panel with James Nolan, who's the assistant trainer and brother to Paul, and they were disappointed, I would say, that they ran him over Christmas. They probably shouldn't have, in hindsight. The ground had just gone against him, and it just didn't work out at all. But he's fresh, he's well, he's had a break since then, and I think he comes here in decent enough nick, and I'd like to see him run a good race, and obviously if he could win, that would be brilliant. He's around the 12 to 1 mark at the moment. I would say he'll end up finishing around 10, 12 to 1, and I think he's got bang solid each way credentials. The Northern Trust Handicap Chase, the novice handicap, used to be the Close Brothers, but they've obviously now gone and sponsored the Mayor's Hurdle this year. I quite like one of Dan Skelton's in here, a horse called Beakstown, running here off a mark of 139. He's been a little disappointing this year. I thought he could be a Ryanair Chase contender at the start of the year, I must confess. Second to Sam Spinner at Wetherby, where he just got outstayed. Fourth to Champ over 2 miles 6, again didn't seem to stay. And then third to Mr. Fisher last time at Cheltenham, showing an okay aptitude for the track, more so than he did in his Ballymore Novices Hurdle run last year. But you'd have to say it hasn't quite gone to plan, and when we interviewed Dan Skelton for the podcast, he pretty much backed that up, that this had been a bit of a disappointment. Well, that being said, he's in here off 139. He's a first-time handicapper. Sometimes that can work a treat, sometimes that can't. I would take the risk, though. I think 139 is lenient. He will get in off 139. And, yeah, I just don't see him as being a 139, 140 horse. I do see him as being a 150 horse down the line, and maybe he's got a few pounds in hand. The Coral Cup, usually one of the biggest bloodbaths of the whole week. That and the Pertemps, I think, are the toughest races to ever come near finding the winner of. I certainly have had little to no luck in them. But I would take a chance here if he runs on a horse called Easy Work for Gordon Elliott. You've probably heard me talk about him quite a lot in regards to Asterion Forlange form. And in my initial Day 2 video, I put this up as a horse that may be to watch as a each way shout in the Ballymore. And that's how well I kind of thought, or like how good I thought this horse was. He's been given a rating of 147, which I suppose is a fair rating for a novice. It's probably around what he has achieved, but it could be workable. I think this is a better horse than a handicapper, and he could be quite interesting in this. My only issue is that novice hurdlers, I think, have a very poor record in the Coral Cup. Again, as I say, stats wouldn't be my main port of call, but that is a stat to be a little bit concerned about. But perhaps running in this, maybe, well, I suppose it's a tip in itself for MYLN that they don't want to go near him in the Ballymore. I would back him in the Ballymore still each way if he ran, but I would probably back this horse in the Coral Cup. I think he's a better than a handicapper, and 147 seems a fair mark. I don't think he's got pounds in hand at this stage of his career, but I think it's fair nonetheless. The Boodles Handicap, the Fred Winter, as it used to be called, I think it's still registered as the Fred Winter, over 2 miles. Usually a bloodbath for punters, and 6 of the last 10 winners of this race have been priced at 25 to 1 or more. So do bear that in mind, that it's not one, perhaps. I know Band of Outlaws won last year, but he was the first favourite to win since Sanctuaire in 2010, which was a bit before my racing time. And I had this horse from last week, and I see it's almost gone mad, which means it'll end up being a poor enough price, I think. But on the same preview panel as James Nolan, Gavin Cromwell was there with Jonathan Moore, and the two of them wanted to put up Theatre of War as their handicap nap of the whole festival, which, considering they've got good horses like Alpha Mix, and I like the way you're thinking for these handicaps that are very well regarded, I just thought this was very telling. He's off a mark of 130 here. He was a sloppy enough jumper to start off his career, but he really kind of began to put it together when second to Lagan Guelga at Christmas time. That race is a good race. Vanovich Gorbachev won it in his Triumph Hurdle year. Sir Eric won it, unfortunately, the year before. And my main thing with it is that there's an awful lot of hype for this horse, Tronador, for Gordon Elliott, who finished 4th in this race and was an eye-catcher, but so too was Theatre of War, that made an awful lot of late ground. He's in here off a mark of 130, so he's actually better off at the weights with Tronador. I think he's got a big squeak. I think he's still around the 20s, 25 to 1 mark. I see him going off 10s, to be honest, because bloody Gavin Lynch has put him up. Gavin Lynch put him up, like the upping the ante thing on the Tuesday. I put him up on our podcast thing on the Monday, but came out yesterday on Wednesday. Mark McCoy, long run, put him up yesterday as well. So everyone's kind of putting him up. I sense the price could collapse into a bit of a crazy price. I think he's still a backable price at the moment at that 20-1 mark. I would say he'll end up going off 10s or 12s. I've been discussing this with a few people. I think he'll go off 10s. If he goes off single figures, I suppose that does mean he's really well fancied, but also, you know, I wouldn't be taking 8s or anything about him, really. It's a bit of a hunch pick, to be honest. But it's the one I was told. I was very taken with the way the lads were talking about him. And I think this horse has done a few nice bits of work since then. And could run very well here off 130. Moving on to the Thursday and the Pertemps Network final. As I said to you guys with the Coral Cup, these are the bloodbaths for punters. But I've got a big, not a big selection, but I've got a thought in this, and it's a horse called A Great View, trained by Dennis Cullen, owned by JP McManus, who obviously has a decent enough record in the race himself. He's running off a mark of 142. Now, he was third in the Pertemps qualifier at Punchestown a few weeks ago, where Relegate was fourth. It was won by a very likeable mare called Mary Francis. It was a good race. I think the two of them, A Great View and Relegate, ran eye-catching runs. But that being said, Relegate came fourth, A Great View came third, and yet Relegate has collapsed into a terrible price for this race. I think she's now single figures. For a horse that really couldn't jump a twig last year over hurdles, I'd have my doubts about Relegate, to be honest. I think she's completely overbet, which is odd, because I know probably some of you guys are looking at me going, it's exactly the type of horse I'd be kind of getting on the train with, ex-Willie Mullins, you know, used to be a very good bumper horse and stuff like that. But I haven't quite seen it. And I see A Great View is around that 20-1 mark. He's more than double the price. And I just can't see why that's the case. He's running here, as I said, off a mark of 142. They fancied the life out of him when he finished sixth in this in 2018, which was the really good year. It was the Delta Work and Glenlow year. And if you look at that race back, he makes a haymaker of a mistake at 2 out, knocks him out of the race. And they, as I say, I knew a few people in Dennis Cullen's yard, and they fancied the life out of him that day, that he was going to win or at least come second or third. And I just think if he's put up a fair few eye-catching runs, and I think he's got a big race in him, it wouldn't surprise me if he ran very well for an each-way price. The Brown Advisory Plate, one of my better handicap shouts, comes in this, but it is quite ordinary, I suppose, in terms of it being the favourite in Simply the Bets. Running off 149 here, having beaten Imperial Aura at the Trials Day meeting, but he beat him very well. He obviously has a brilliant chance in the Novice Handicap on the first day, and if he went on to win the Novice Handicap, Simply the Bets will go off 4 or 5-1 here. So I've taken 9-1. I think that's a decent enough price, to be honest. Again, it's another horse that a fair few people seem to like, but my reasoning behind it really is that I think this is a really good horse. I think if I'm a betting man, which I am, I think this horse will go off single figures for the 2021 Ryanair Chase. I think he's that good a horse. I think he's a Grade 1 horse here. This race has been won by Grade 1 horses before. Road to Respect won it in 2017. The Storyteller won it in 2018. Road to Respect's definitely a Grade 1 horse. The Storyteller ended up being... He won a few Grade 1s, but... well, he certainly won one. He won at the Punchestown Festival that year. But he's certainly a Grade 2 horse over fences. You know, it takes a really good horse to win this race, and I think he's got the most improvement left in him. 3 for 4 over fences. Only time he got beat was at Kempton. Didn't like Kempton. I think he's a very, very good chance. The Muir Handicap Chase, another one for JP. I'm putting up here in the form of Fitzhenry, running here off 142. Going back to my connection with James Nolan, he said that if they get the green light for this race, which isn't 100%, but if they did get the green light for this race, he would run very well. I don't know who would ride him. Maybe Derek O'Connor. If he's not riding, no comment. I'm not sure, because Barry O'Neill is riding Plan of Attack. Jamie Codd's riding Raven Hill. You'd want to see somebody good on it. Maybe you could get an Anya O'Connor or something. She's a good rider. I don't know. It all happened, that will all come to fruition if the horse does run or not. As you all know, second in the Paddy Power, the infamous Jerry Hannon, Roaring Bull, that one, which I thought was legendary at the time. But then when you hear it back like 10 times, you're like, oh. But I probably do similar enough myself. But anyway, he was very unlucky that day, hung to the left after the last. He kind of just jinked left, just got pipped on the post. And then the last day he was even more unlucky in the Leopardstown Handicap Chase, where he was brought to a standstill by the fall of Articulum with 2 out. Barry Geraghty said that he was going really well that day. He thought he would have won. That would have probably rised him up to the extent where he wouldn't have got in the Kim Muir. So maybe a race like this, a 0 to 145, is still within reach. As I say, he's only rated 142. And I think he's around that 12-14 to 1 shot, non-runner, no bet. I would take that, because the only thing that will happen is he doesn't run, and you get your money back. I think if he runs, he'll finish in the places. The county hurdle, I've won at a kind of a bit outside the box, to be honest, and he's unlikely to get in, which seems stupid then that I'm putting him up. The usual cut-off for the county hurdles around the 132, 133 bracket. This horse is rated 132, and it's a horse called Golden Jewel, trained by Eddie Cawley, that a lot of you English people maybe might know, but he's quite a shrewd operator over here. He's got a few decent enough horses. He knows how to get a good horse to win races, let's just put it that way. And he's been third and second in his last 2 races at Leopardstown. And the last time he was second in the big 2-mile handicap hurdle at the Dublin Racing Festival. He was desperately unlucky that day. I think he was 11th jumping the last, and ended up finishing a length behind. Those days are gone, finishing with a wet sail with Adam Short on board. If he sneaks into this race, I think connections think he'll run a big race. He's around the 33, 40 to 1 mark. Again, non-runner, no bet. The worst thing that can happen is he doesn't get in. If he does get in, they want to run him. They will run him. And I think that stiff 2 miles could really suit this horse. He tried 2.5, didn't quite get home. 2 mile around Leopardstown on that type of tracks, maybe a hint too sharp. I think 2 miles on stiff ground is exactly what he needs. The Grand Annual Chase, I don't have much of a say, to be honest. It's a race where the Irish invariably don't do very well. If I'm being honest, I think your one Grenadine maybe, has a very good chance for Paul Nicholls. I think if my selection doesn't run, he'd be the horse I would back. I think he is a really class horse. I think he's very close to being an Arkle horse, to be honest. But I would take a chance if he runs on Gary Moore's horse in this, Not Another Muddle, running off 140. It would be his first run of the season, which is a massive concern. But he was 5th in the race last year when he was well backed. He was backed into favouritism late doors. I backed him last year. I put him up at around 10 to 1. I think he went off 5s or 6s, which was a big price. He didn't deserve to be that price, but he ran all right, made a few jumping mistakes and plugged on to be 5th. This race doesn't have a bad record of horses losing in it and coming back and then winning it the next year. I don't know. I have no idea whether he'll run or not, because it would be his first run of the season, and I don't know whether they'd do that with the horse or not. But if he did, I think he'd have an each-way squeak. And finally, the Martin Pipe Handicap Hurdle. I've banged on about this horse for a few weeks now over on Twitter and stuff. I really like Front View in this race of 139 for last year's connections. I'd say Joseph O'Brien, obviously Joseph O'Brien trained. I would say he will book John Joe O'Neill Jr. to run or to ride the horse. I wouldn't say he's been laid out for the race, but I thought last time at Thurles, he was morning price of 5 to 2 and went off 15 to 2. Make of that what you want. He finished a nice second, not given a hard time behind 5 o'clock. I think the Envoy Allen form from Down Royal is obviously brilliant. He beat John Snow and New Tread in a Cork maiden hurdle. Both of them have boosted the form since, and I think he's going to take an awful lot of stopping off 139. That is front view. Anyway, I hope you guys did enjoy this video where we tackled the 10 handicaps, and I suppose I want to know what your guys' big fancies for the handicaps are. We haven't really discussed them yet this season, so it's time for you guys to tell me what you think your handicap nap is, and maybe a really dark one that not many other people have put up. I've tried to put in a few dark ones there, the likes of a Great View, and Theatre War isn't a dark one anymore. Maybe Golden Jewel, if he got in, would be a dark one for the county hurdle. As I said at the start of the video, if you do like this video, please do give it a like and subscribe to the channel. And obviously, go over and follow me on Twitter if you want to see any more kind of daily news, content sort of stuff. It would be great to have you over there as well. And obviously, the countdown now continues. I'm absolutely buzzing over there for the full 4 days. If you do see me over there, do come up, do shake my hand. Let's hopefully have a pint together and let's back a winner together. I'll see you next week.